welcome to the Fortress of Comic News, episode 157. I am one of your hosts, Chris, alongside Mike. Mike, how's quarantine life?
It's it's something, I tell you. I haven't left in a couple days, probably over a couple days. Well, considering it is, it's the weekend right now, but I don't know. It's just getting worse and worse out there. More cases, more testing. These people that are being tested that they're finding the cases of could have probably had it already with not showing symptoms. I don't know. I'm trying not to worry too much about it, but where I am in the Berkshire area, all the people from New York City that don't want to be in the city because they chose to live in a city and they're very close to other people are traveling like up to the Berkshires now. So it's kind of like, it's like becoming like a War of the Worlds scene or something where everybody starts like migrating and flooding an area, and that's, dude, it spreads quickly, man. Like, and it was a terrible week to read The Resistance by J. Michael Straczynski because that's literally the whole issue is about this. And I was like, man, I almost had to stop reading it. I was like, this is this is too real, man. Like, I'm like, I can't believe they released that book when they did, but we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
How's quarantine for you, Chris?
It's called the weekend for me.
Yeah, right.
Work resumes as is. I am quote unquote necessary labor, and so it's just a weekend.
Yeah,
I'm not in quarantine life. I don't think I will be.
I mean, you are necessary labor. I mean, I've been to the grocery store like 3 times more than I've ever been in 1 week. So like, those shelves need to be stocked. We need product on the shelves, man.
I'll tell you, the amount of water I've sold this past week is outrageous.
Oh, so. That's the one thing I don't like. We talked about toilet paper last week, and this week we'll talk about water. Do people think that there's a guy who presses a button to turn the water on and off, and like he gets the virus and passes away, and then there's nobody to turn the button to turn your water on? You know what I mean? Like, how do they think it works? Like, I'm
going to share a secret with our audience because I don't know if a lot of people know about this yet. But there's this thing. It's called a sink.
Yeah,
most of you have it in your kitchen, some in the bathroom as well. And then there's this little hose on top of it with 2 knobs. Sometimes it's 1, but usually it's 2. And if you flip those knobs, water comes out of it.
What? Golly gee, no fooling. Yeah, I don't know.
What's frustrating for me is that like my mother-in-law lives on well water, and it's like well water that's not good, and she's been getting it tested for a while now, trying to get it fixed. So like she legitimately needs water,
right?
And like legitimately should be hoarding water. And we've been going out and buying a shitload just because every time we see it, we're like, okay, or in my work I can buy it from work too. I'm just like, okay, she needs water, so we've been buying it. But it's like, there's other people like that out there, and all these people are buying it out when they have perfectly good faucets. It's like, it's back to the toilet paper thing. Just to calm down a little bit. Like, it's not the apocalypse.
Right. Oh, who knows? Give it till next week. It might be. But today on the show, we still have guests because, hey, what better excuse to say you've been quarantined to get them to jump on the show with us? You know what I mean? Then we know they're not going anywhere. I saw that video of Sam Smith crying. I don't know if you did, but man.
And we practice social distancing 24/7, so people love coming here.
Experts at it. Matt Hawkins will be joining us on the show today. Writer at Image Comics, so we'll be talking with him in just a little bit. But first, we'll just jump through the news here. TV news. Chris is excited about this. Ashoka Tana has been cast for Mandalorian Season 2, and Rosario Dawson will play the Jedi. Yes, that's awesome, right? I think that's cool.
It's huge. Rosario is like a big fan of the character apparently, and people have been petitioning to have her do it. And then there was a lot of things going around to people doing the math, and during the Mandalorian, Rosario Dawson would be the perfect age.
Right.
So this is great to get that character out to more people, and to have like a great actress playing that character. I'm so excited to see what she's like in that show.
Yeah, and plus we know she's on the Marvel docket. She's already like the night nurse on Marvel, pretty much, right? Or the Disney docket.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. If you go back to that show. There's a lot of characters in there that are from like Disney or Marvel shows because they're in the Disney family, so it works.
Yeah, I've been waiting for them to like give her a awesome like strong badass female character within one of those universes, and finally we got it. So
yeah, and Ahsoka's been one that's been in animation for a long time, and she's got her own book. I think she showed up in a few comics, but to get live action for a character that's so beloved, I'm super excited about this.
Harley Quinn season 2 trailer released alongside with the date Friday, April 3rd. So a couple weeks. Yeah, I guess it's pretty popular. It wasn't for me. It was too. I don't know. To watch a DC cartoon where they're like dropping f-bombs every second is kind of strange to me. But
yeah, it. Do you remember when they were gonna do like Danny Glover was gonna do a Deadpool cartoon?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
It feels like that's what this is like a reaction to that, and that obviously never happened. I know my missus loved that show. She's a big Harley Quinn nut, but I didn't watch much of it, so I can't say much. But good for the Harley Quinn fans that there's gonna be a new season.
Yeah,
it seems weird that it's so quick too. Didn't it just end?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of stuff's getting released early and coming out of theaters, and because of the whole quarantine thing. AMC has announced it will postpone the release of Walking Dead World Beyond to a time later in 2020. Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of this happen. Movies are being delayed. Yeah, I'm sure Wonder Woman's next up on the slate here. It's
this
TV as well, but
this show. I don't really know why it would be postponed. Like, I don't have a good answer for it. They kept saying COVID-19, but
they're probably still shooting it, I think.
This might be an excuse to do it, but it seems like this would be a better time to release it because I'm hearing more and more people talk about like all the stuff they're watching on Netflix and all the shows they're catching up on and this and that right now.
Right.
Because it's just a way to kind of get away from this whole thing. So it seems like it'd be a perfect time to release something like this, but here we are.
Yep. Walking Dead. Speaking of Walking Dead, you still watching it?
Yeah, last episode was really great. So it's hilltops burned down, and we're kind of in that moment where everybody's scattered and trying to figure out what to do next. So there's a lot of like one-off little mini stories of like these people are off doing this, and these people are off and they help the kids and so on and so forth. But the big like the B story, which is actually kind of the A story in my opinion, was about the Whisperers and the things that Negan's been doing. And Negan's been helping out Alpha a lot, and he comes to her and says like, I found your daughter and I've got her stored away somewhere. And we end up finding out that it was just a ruse. He didn't really have her tied up anywhere for Alpha, and he ends up killing Alpha. It was a pretty intense moment, like the whole sequence leading up to it, where Negan kind of tells the story from the Here's Negan graphic novel of his wife and everything.
Yep.
And them having a little moment, and then he just kind of slits her throat, and it's always irks me out because that's the last way I'd want to die is for someone to slit my throat.
Right.
And then at the end, we see Alpha's head roll across the ground, and standing on the other end is Carol. And apparently Carol and Negan had a pact. And we're working together the whole time, and then it just cuts to black. So it was like a really good episode, some intense moments, but then that ending, I literally said out loud, like, what the fuck? Like, is this better not be the last episode?
Right. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I really liked it.
Clone Wars, you're still watching that?
Speaking of Ahsoka Tano, it was an Ahsoka Tano heavy episode of her going down to 1313 and, kind of having an adventure down there. Good episode. Once again, though, it's with everything with the show. It's season 7. If you haven't seen the other seasons to lead up to where she is, her being down in 1313 and doing what she's doing doesn't make sense because there's a lot of lead up to things that happened to her in like season 5 and 6 that brought her to this moment. But good episode. And Ahsoka Tano heavy episode was a good one. It's kind of like Randy Marsh in South Park. When Randy shows up, you know it's gonna be a good episode.
It's gonna be a good episode. You're like, oh shit, here we go again. Yeah, all the memorable episodes are the Randy ones. Yeah. So what I'm actually finishing up Castlevania on Netflix. I almost done with season 2. It's a really good show. I mean, the animation quality and just like the choreography for the fighting and all that stuff's pretty awesome. I finished The Kingdom as well, season 2 that just came out. Crazy. It's weird how it all ended. Like they wrapped up like the prince's takes back the prince of his quote unquote mother is ruling the kingdom using zombies for like the political influence, and then she can't have a child herself, so there's this big conspiracy where the queen is like stealing babies from like den mother, like having pregnant women stay at the palace, and she's like stealing their babies until she gets a son and like calling it hers. So there's like all this crazy stuff going on. It all resolves big battle with zombies, and there's like this big they basically do like the Night King fight, but they do it way better than the last season of Game of Thrones. There's like they go out on the ice and all the zombies are like rushing at them, and there's like a last ditch effort to like break the ice and like have all the zombies fall through the ice. But as this is happening, like main characters are being bitten by zombies and like scratched by zombies, so like all the main characters are dead. But what we find out earlier in the episode is that submerging the people that have just been bitten or like scratched underwater forces the parasite that turns them into a zombie like out of their body. Like it kills it if you just drown it in water. So as they're like falling into the ice water, all the zombies they don't like water, so like all the main characters that were infected basically are cured and they survive the night. But then there was a jump forward. The interesting thing is like I'm like, oh well, where do they go from here? There's a jump forward where they the new kid is a king. The one that was stolen by the queen is now like the prince that's going to be a king, and the actual prince who saved the kingdom is in search of the person that started the outbreak with the zombies. And as they find this like weird laboratory, because this is still like ancient, ancient times, so there isn't any technology around except for like maybe a gunpowder rifle or something. But they find this like weird alchemy lab thing with the zombies chained up and stuff that's in another part of Japan. And it ends, they find this like woman who's like a bounty hunter. She looks like a bounty, like she's wearing a trench coat with like swords and stuff. And that's how the season ends. And I didn't know who the character was, but I'm sure if you read the manga, because it is The Kingdom is a manga that it's probably explained a little bit more there, but it was really good. This is a good season. It was only like 6 episodes too. It's fairly quick. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I got to catch up on Flash still, but I guess we'll just head over to the movie news. This is pretty cool for Chris. I know he's excited about this. Peyton Reed teases the appearance of MODOK in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, so Peyton Reed, the guy's going to do Ant-Man 3, and I believe he did Ant-Man the Wasp, said that John Hodgman has been like campaigning real hard to play MODOK. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they said that there's something coming in the near future for John to play. So we'll see. If they do MODOK, I'm going to freak out. Like I'm literally going to. You're going to hear me from there. I don't care if there's a quarantine. I'm going to the movie theater to see that movie.
Yeah. They're like, we're not open. I don't care. I'm just going to sit here till you
open the damn door.
I'm going to sit here till you open. We're not open, sir. I'm going to sit here. Sir, please leave. Okay.
MODOK.
The missus drives up. She's like, "You're scaring the children, Chris. MODOK. You can take me away, but you'll never take my MODOK." Oh man!
But yeah, if that happens, seriously, I'll freak out.
That's like me get like when they tease like Owlman will show up at the end of the Batman trilogy. I would be like, "Oh my god!"
Dude, that's one for me too. Like if the Crime Syndicate was like if they decided to redo Justice League and like we're gonna do the Crime Syndicate, I would be right there with you. Like I'm not as big a fan, but I do love the Crime Syndicate.
Wouldn't that be interesting though? Like we're taking a sidebar quick. I know we got a great interview to get to, but think about it. Like, what, we always talk about these stakes of every superhero movie. It's all been done before, and it's all the stakes are too high. The universe is in danger. The Earth is going to crash and die. But like, what if they just the main like trilogy villain is just a evil version of the Justice League, and it's like they just keep getting thwarted. You know what I mean? They're just always one step ahead. Like, wouldn't everyone love to see that? Like the first movie, you do the opposite origins of all the heroes because you love origins so much. They or like we get a whole second movie that's completely in the world of the crime syndicate, like the whole half of the movie. Like we understand that like they always fail and that's why they're evil and dude, and then we start rooting for the crime syndicate, like you feel bad for them. And then the third movie, bam, you don't know who to root for because they're fighting each other, but you feel bad for the crime syndicate. Owlman's got a badass suit. How can you not love him? Lois Lane is Power Woman. Come on.
The only sequence I want is what's Superman? Power Man?
Ultraman.
Ultraman, that's right. Okay. The only scene I want, if this ever happens, is that scene where, just like in Scarface, where he's got a giant pile of cocaine, I want Ultraman sitting there with a giant pile of kryptonite, just going, yeah.
If anybody doesn't know, that's how Ultraman gets his powers, because he's also Superman. He ingests kryptonite. He definitely doesn't need to snort it, but Grant Morrison's crazy, so that'll happen. But yeah, I don't know what we got from MODOK to there, but take our ideas, DC, Marvel, do something with it. Black Widow's release gets pushed due to theaters closing around the world. We kind of knew this was going to happen. There's nowhere to show the movie. I saw Amazon release the thing today. You can see movies in theaters, like you have to pay for it, but there's like I don't know if it's an additional subscription service or you pay for the movies. So we might start seeing that happen. Like, there's been talk about this around like people that revolve around like futurology and all that stuff of like, when are we going to go to the digital age of like movies released to homes, streaming service? And we might see that roll out a lot sooner than we thought because of this whole. There's never really been a demand for it, right? And now, huge demand, and it's not even from the fans. It's from the studios that invested in these products, and now they can't show Black Widow anywhere, and they just dropped millions of dollars making it. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and it's not in our notes because it got kind of confusing. But like, there was a rumor going around that Wonder Woman was talking about it, and then a reverse rumor that said that no, they're committed to a theatrical release. But like, that's a possibility. And then you seeing like Onward came out, to Disney Plus, and I believe it's the next. We can jump right into it, but Bloodshot coming out early digitally.
Well, that wasn't a good movie, but
did you go see it?
No, I just heard bad things.
I have low expectations of it because A, it's a Vin Diesel movie, and B, as long as it's Groundhog Day with killing, I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna watch it, even though I know a comic fan that watched it and said it had nothing to do with the comic, so why even make it a Bloodshot movie kind of thing, but.
That's another thing is I've never read a Bloodshot comic in my life.
Same, I don't know either, but yeah.
So, but like, this could be a testing ground. Maybe they're thinking, hey, let's see, and if people go out and pay for the digital release and we make our money back or make more money, like then who gives a fuck about the theater release anymore?
Right.
There's ramifications from that, but we won't get into those. But it'd be interesting. I mean. There's an outcry for Black Widow to do the same, and I wouldn't mind it. I mean, I like going to the theater, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind just sitting in my house and continuing to be a recluse that never leaves.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I guess. If it's not great, I keep telling myself it is until I believe it.
There's other humans here, and there's like a couple cats and a tortoise, and so when I get bored, I can... Oh, yeah, we have a tortoise. I haven't told you this. We have a tortoise. Her name is April.
Do you brush the shell with like a toothbrush? Isn't that what you do? Do you have to brush the shell?
It's the missus' job. It's her tortoise. I bought it for her.
Anyways, okay, we're going to jump to this awesome interview with Matt Hawkins, Image Comics. Sorry to put you all through that, and we'll see everybody on the other side.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we have another very special guest for you, Mr. Matt Hawkins. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being here, man. And the quarantine kind of helps us with these interviews because we know people aren't really going anywhere. So.
Yeah, I'm stuck at home here in Los Angeles. Fortunately, I like where I live.
Yeah, there's probably worse places to be. I would assume. I don't know, but yeah, let's just jump right into it. I mean, you've been doing this for quite some time. You have some pretty awesome books out in the market today. But let's talk about your origin story. What got you into comics? Were you always reading at an early age, and when did you start writing?
Well, here is the part where when I explain this story, most people that have wanted to write comic books their whole life cringe their sphincters up and hate me because no, I did not read comics when I was a kid.
All right,
I
we'll
did
see
not
you
really
later.
have any interest in them.
Yeah.
I was at the physics program at UCLA working on my master's, and I was working retail banking, which is the worst job on the planet, and hated what I was doing. And then my nephew, who's 13 years younger than me, wanted to go meet Rob Liefeld at a signing at Mile High Comics in Anaheim, California. I did not know who Rob Liefeld was. This was April of 1993. So I took my nephew on a Saturday down to meet Rob, and I saw 8 young, good-looking guys with 8 young, really attractive women, and it looked like they were having a really good time. And you know, I don't know how much you know about physics and the master's program of physics, but you're talking 30 hours of classwork, probably another 30 hours of lab work, and another 30 to 40 hours of homework. You know, on top of I was working a full-time job to pay my way through school. So my life sucked. And I was not around a lot of attractive younger people.
Yeah.
So when I met Rob and these people, see, here's the other part of that equation I didn't tell you in terms of my origin. There were 3 artists in front of me. Andy Park, John Sabal, and Cedric Nocon. All 3 notable artists in the field today, you know, and the entire time I was in this long line, 3-hour line, I mean, I had no idea people would wait 3 hours for the guy that had the button 501 blue commercial. I mean, who knew, right? And so I wait in this long line. I meet this guy. He hires these 3 artists right in front of me. And I have 2, you know, my sons are 18 and 20, so they're adult sons. I tell them this all the time. I said, I don't know why there's 2 or 3 times in my lifetime where the universe has opened a door for me and allowed me into something potentially special. And the difference is I took it. I knocked on that door. I stepped through it. I saw an opportunity and I grabbed it. And I think so many people don't see that because when these 3 artists all got hired on the spot right in front of me, I just, on an instinct, I said, Rob, you know, look, I got to be honest, hardworking guy. You hiring for anything else? And he's like, I need someone to write press releases for me or do letters pages. I didn't know what a letters page was, but I knew what a press release was. And I said, I'm your guy. And I'd never done any sort of work like that before in my life. So I'll never forget. He gave me his card. I went to, there was a Crown Books, I think it was called, down the street. Bought a book called How to Write a Press Release. I wrote a press release for him about the event that we were at. Like if I was sending it out to the local press, like, oh, there's a store signing. And I faxed it to him that night. He hired me the next day.
That's awesome.
It was 28 years ago. I mean, that would have been April of 1993.
Wow.
You know? And so my segue into writing comics came because as Rob, when I started, Eric Stevenson had only worked there for like 3 weeks. So he and I became sort of competitors in a weird way because he got the Image line of books and I got what was called later the Maximum Press line of books, which was Battlestar Galactica, Evangeline, and those. So I became an editor, and one of my first editorial gigs was editing Alan Moore, which as a 23-year-old guy who doesn't know how to write and didn't know shit, I think I felt editing Alan Moore at age 23. I just thank you, God.
Did they tell Alan Moore that is the question though?
Well, I at some point when you're working with writers who are masterful and you read their stuff and it's great, you don't need to give them notes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So I technically I'm listed at his as his editor. I was more his trafficker. I always say I managed that project, trafficking pages around, but I did not offer any story notes of any kind. So.
What do you even tell Alan Moore? A little less dystopian this time.
I have to tell you, I've not talked to Alan in a while, but he was actually quite pleasant to talk to, very professional. You know, he was very considerate of the fact that he was a 50-year-old legend talking to a 25-year-old novice who was technically his boss, but not really. You know what I mean? I mean, it was it was really it was really kind of surreal, when you deal with that stuff. And for me, it was Alan Moore that made the difference between my decision to stay in comics and my absolutely going and doing something else in my life, because I read From Hell and the research done in it. I read Watchmen and the research done to it. And all these books that Alan had done, they were just so well thought out, so adult in nature. I started seeing comics as something more than kiddie shit. I even for the first couple of years I worked in it, I thought of it as kiddie shit. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, no, there's a lot of really sophisticated stuff. Comic books are just like novels. There's something for everyone. And I think that's one of the things I try to convey to people is that there really is something for everyone. It annoys me when people don't think they like comics. How often have you heard people say, I used to read comics?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Have you ever heard someone say, I used to watch movies, or I used to watch TV, or I used to read books? No one fucking says that. Why is it I used to read comics?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
A part of our entertainment lexicon. I don't know. Well, I find that annoying.
Yeah.
But I think that's why the stuff I write, even the more smutty stuff, it's not for kids. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't think I'd ever write well for kids, even though I did work on the Power Rangers.
That's why Power Rangers are awesome. I don't know what you're talking about. That's why I think Walking Dead there at Image was a big one, because even when people were like, I used to read comics, I handed them the first couple trays of Walking Dead, and they came back a few days later like, do you have more?
Yeah. Well, that's like, I have a book like Think Tank, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with.
Oh, yeah.
I know scientists who read that book, and they like it because it's sort of, at least it makes an attempt to be scientifically accurate,
Right. Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I need you to confirm or deny something for me, because someone who actually knows Alan Moore. I've always had this theory about Alan Moore. I've listened to a few of his interviews, and I've read a lot of the stuff he does, and a lot of the perception about him as a person around the industry and the world. And I've seen that, like, his words in print come off very kind of hostile. But when you listen to the man, he almost sounds like he has a dry sense of humor. And some of the things he's saying that come off hostile in print are him kind of making a joke. Is that how the man is in real life? Like, or is this something that I've made up in my head to justify?
No, I think you're right. I also have a very dry sense of humor. So Alan, often when I was on the phone with him, would make me laugh. Mm-hmm. I think if you don't have that sort of that ironic, satirical wit, which requires, honestly, a little more intelligence to understand, like the few of us that are into Monty Python and Blackadder, we know we're smarter than those other fuckers,
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
It's a higher level of thinking, okay?
Yeah. You need high level critical thinking to think that shit's fun.
Yeah.
And if you do, you're fucking cool like us.
Yeah.
Well, fuck off.
Yeah. But, right. Exactly. That's amazing.
But,
I love it.
No, I think Alan does have a sense of humor. I have never met him in person. There have been a few times where I've been on the phone with him. Honestly, I couldn't tell if he was trolling me or not. Where like he would say something about the White Room and how the magicians all collect there, and I couldn't tell if it was a shtick about him and modern magic and that he really believes it, or wait, I just mixed that up. Whether it was a shtick or he really believes it. You know how people kind of fit into that thing, and Alan's one of those guys. I've only met a handful of people in my lifetime where I just love talking to them, because even being in their presence and talking to them for half an hour, I feel like I learned something significant. There's so few people in my life that do that for me that I cherish the ones that do, and he was definitely one.
But let's circle back to Think Tank really quick, because I remember, and I was seeing issues of that at the time when I was back. I used to get my books at the local comic shop when I was around and talk about books. But that was one that caught my eye too, because like you said, you have scientists and stuff reading it. And me, I was in engineering school. I'm a chemical engineer. Like you said, you're a physicist doing physics. And for me, I was reading stuff like that, like Manhattan Projects. And I was like, wow, like, this is pretty cool that there's a whole scientific sci-fi aspect to comics as well. I mean, it's not just people in capes anymore. Like, we're talking about real shit, real science and research.
Well, I think that's something that's kind of opened up, because you see a lot more companies like Dark Horse or Image were hiring novelists and other writers to develop content and do original stuff. I mean, there's guys like Andy Weir who I knew when he was still at NASA before he wrote The Martian or Artemis or any of those things. Nice, smart guy, and I'm glad. There's a weird thing amongst us closet scientists, and I don't claim to be an actual scientist because I never actually did anything. So I never did any research.
Right.
I wrote a paper in college that got published, but outside of that, I never did shit. So I'm not a real scientist. However, there's a lot of real scientists like Andy who worked on the Juno project, who worked on the space shuttle, who wrote The Martian and wrote Artemis, who's a real, legitimate guy. And I think a lot of us that we meet, we try to clandestinely educate while we entertain. That's kind of the idea of it, because I think a lot of us, I'm a 50-year-old guy. I look back to my youth at Ray Bradbury. I look at, Robert Heinlein. I look at Isaac Asimov and a lot of these artists and writers I knew as a kid that I learned so much from, and these amazing stories they wrote that really first sparked my intellectual curiosity and made all the difference. And not just books, but films. I remember Dead Poet Society profoundly affecting me, because of I never really thought about the idea of seize the day, the whole carpe diem of it all, and when you really sort of think about that, it changes how you look at life.
Yeah, that's awesome. And let's talk about what we got out, current books. You have not Postal, The Clock and
Swing.
String, yeah. So let's talk about Swing. So let's talk about those two books. They're completely different, like you said. I didn't even know about Swing, but now reading up on it, I'm probably going to be checking it out. But let's start with The Clock. Give us the rundown on what The Clock is.
Well, The Clock is amazingly coronavirus friendly because it's essentially about the weaponization of cancer.
Oh, okay.
And how there's the eugenics conspiracy thriller sort of spreading cancer around the globe, but it appears to be to most people as a virus. So there's this global epidemic of expansion of cancer rates all over the planet. And the crazy thing is, I wrote this first issue 5 years ago. And it was after I went to a biotech community conference here in Los Angeles and met a bunch of immunotherapists and started asking them if it was possible to give people cancer for fun. And these are the kind of questions they're not used to getting, I explained to them, I'm a writer, so, these are the kind of questions I like to ask.
Yeah.
So that's the best thing ever, by the way, being a writer, because I've gotten into so many places like you would not even believe. You want to go tour the Los Angeles County morgue? You can, you just go through the writer's office of entertainment and you tell them this is what you do. You have a couple published credits, doesn't matter what it is. You can go visit ride-alongs anywhere. It's
wow.
Did you hear that, the one awesome part about being a writer. I got to tell you, it's fun. So
Chris is taking notes right now for research.
Whatever works.
No, it's fine. Let him in. He's a writer. Oh, okay. My bad.
Yeah, all good.
So that's an ongoing book right now.
Yeah, so actually it's a 4-issue miniseries, but the second issue just came out. The third issue should be out in a couple weeks. So I just finished it. It's I'm writing it. Colleen Doran is the artist. She most recently worked on that Troll book with Neil Gaiman. She did that. She did another book with Warren Ellis and another thing with Derek Robertson. So no pressure. I just work with all these top tier writers. Like I'm in their class,
Yeah.
So I read the first issue. I think the second issue came out when I hurt my back and I was out of work. But I remember the first issue being very centered around the researchers,
right?
And them trying to figure out what's going on. Is that the story going forward with this? That you want to focus on the guys on the ground trying to figure out how to solve this issue?
Yes, I have always been a fan of world building and having enormous world-shattering consequencing events. One of the problems I always have with a lot of films and a lot of big-budget movies is that they will often focus on too much stuff on too broad of a level. You really need to focus on characters and family and explain to the common person why this matters and how it affects them and why they should give a shit. If you only focus on, the U.S. Navy's response to it or whatever on some sort of a more macro level, it doesn't have the same resonance with the readers, and they need to connect on that sort of emotional level. I always think there's 3 levels to everything. There's the physical level, the emotional level, and the intellectual level. You need to figure out all 3. It's key to everything.
Yeah, and that's what really interested me about it was when I first picked it up. Sitting there and being like, I've never, like I say, it's never been done, but I can't remember somewhere where they focused on such a big event, but then went in on the people and arguably the most boring job of it all, which was trying to go from place to place and figure out what's going on. And that really intrigued me because it's something new, and it's also very important today because of what's going on. I thought it was a great concept to get it going. So,
like, I wrote, like I said, I wrote that first issue 5 years ago. I think it was after I watched Contagion again. I love that movie.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, I have an idea for this kind of thing. And so that's where that came from. And it's just odd timing that this coronavirus stuff is all happening right now.
Mhm.
You know, honestly, it was because Colleen she had to finish her Warren before she could start mine, and I don't know who might out cue Warren Ellis.
well, yeah, we talked about it. Well, in the flow of the show, it's going to be later in the show, but there was a few books this week that were just like a little bit too on the nose,
Yeah.
and there's been a couple books in some of the media we've been watching. It's coincidence, but it's kind of ironic how art imitates life and life imitates art.
Mhm.
Well, for me, it's been the story of my career, like with Think Tank and a lot of these books. The truth is, I'm not any sort of savant or have any special knowledge. I can just read the science journals. That's
Mhm.
it. And the science journals don't filter down to regular media for 2 or 3 years. That's
Mhm.
long enough for me to put out a miniseries about the worst case scenario, And
Yeah.
that's been honestly my career. I mean, that's how I made Stairway. That's how I made Golgotha, Think Tank. All these books that have kind of found this sort of hardcore science fiction audience. That's where all the ideas came from. I was just scrolling through these, the American Physical Papers or Nature magazine, one of these really dark, dry magazines, and I'll come across this concept where it's like, these two Harvard researchers were able to record a video onto someone's DNA, and I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And after reading like 6 hours of stuff that's like boring as fuck, and then you're suddenly reading about how you can record video on someone's DNA, meaning I can download shit into your body,
Right.
and then recover it later and so spy politics, all these things start popping up in my mind.
Yep.
You could walk in with a copy of Ferris Bueller's Day Off in your bloodstream just for fun.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all these amazing sort of possibilities that sort of change everything. I don't know. I mean, I've been in a really weird meta sort of Zen phase of late.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I'm getting old. Maybe.
You're getting wiser.
Yeah, you turn 50, and it's a really weird one because like 50 is one of those ages where I remember being 15 and thinking 30 was old.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So when you think 30 is old, then what the fuck is 50, right? All right. Yes.
So where's the technical or research paper that revolves around swing?
Oh, well, therein lies an interesting tale of me and my second wife.
Okay.
No, swing. Sunstone. Are you guys familiar with the book called Sunstone?
I have not read it, but I've heard of it. Okay. Yeah.
Sunstone is. See, here's the interesting thing. Like, it is not a book that normally people would associate with, say, Top Cow, but it is Top Cow's best-selling graphic novel of all time. Okay, wow. Including the early days of Image and all these sort of things. Really? And it's about two gay women and a select life S&M relationship with each other.
Wow,
that's what the book is about, And I mean, so we had this enormous hit about something like that, and we realized the readership was mainly middle-aged women, and a lot of these middle-aged women would come to us at conventions because I do a lot of these conventions. And people come up to me and say, "I like this book or that book." And I would see a lot of middle-aged women coming up to me, asking me a lot of questions about Sunstone. They wouldn't be familiar with any of my other work, even though I'd been doing it for, 25 years. So swing came out of that because I started researching sex-positive sex subcultures. S&M was Sunstone. And I looked, and there was 2 S&M clubs in Los Angeles and 4 swinging clubs. So I'm like, I did my stupid math and said, oh, there's twice the audience. And, whatever works.
Yep.
And that's how Swing came about.
Wow. It's so interesting too to find out like that whole like subcategory of readers that wouldn't necessarily read anything else too. We talk about that with like horror comics and political stuff, and then apparently there's an S&M. I mean, it's yeah.
No, there's an entire I think there's people that read Think Tank. I think there's people that read Postal, and there's definitely people that read Sunstone and Swing that do not read any other comic. Period. And I meet these people because they want to come talk to me. But the thing is a lot of people that are into S&M or they're into swinging, they're not ashamed of it. I think that's the part where people sometimes confuse. Is like people want to shame these people for what they do, but not only are they not ashamed of it, they're kind of proud of it. And I think that's kind of some of the beauty of when you get into these things and understand what they're really about and get past the judgmental bullshit that everyone always has in their brains. You meet some of these people, you realize what they're about, what they want, and I mean, it's just not what you think. And I think when you deliver something that feels authentic to them, to their community, they really celebrate it. They support it like majorly. And they recommend it to family and friends, and I think that's why these books do so well.
Yeah, I mean that is really cool. So speaking of like people coming up to you at conventions and stuff, are you planning on doing any of those upcoming?
Well, I had oh man, I mean, I was
and a lot of them are getting canceled. Yeah.
I was supposed to be in Kansas City right now at Planet Comic Con. So last weekend I was supposed to be in Seattle at Emerald City. Next weekend, I'm supposed to be in Dallas. I've had 7 or 8 conventions cancel, and it's really just it's really kind of saddening for me because it's just a loss of income.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's just gone, which sucks, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, Chris and I were gearing up for the start of all the con season and where we were going to go, and now it's kind of dying out.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you have an online store where people can go to grab some stuff from you to help you through all this?
Yeah, look, I'm not in any, I'm not throwing a GoFundMe. I'm not about to be tossed out on the street. So there are far more in need right now than me. So worry about those 40 people before you get down to me. But we have the TopCowStore.com, which if you just request anything you buy in there, if you want it signed, we sign it for you for free because we're here. I mean. But I think more important than helping me right now is helping comic book stores in general. And the readership, because I'm really concerned because I know a lot of comic book shops were having difficulty staying afloat as it is, and I think that either whether it's making a pull list, calling the store and seeing if they'll deliver for you, which I know a lot of them will. I'm concerned about the health of the direct market. I'm not sure it's going to survive this.
Yeah.
Our personal comic shop is we've had I'm friends with him and we've had a few conversations about it, and his biggest worry is if he shuts down, people start buying him a Comixology, and then why go to the shop anymore? Yeah.
Well, it's that experience. I mean, the comic shop experience is unique. It is predominantly male. I mean, that's the thing that you realize when you get into the business of this, that a lot of women don't make the weekly trip as part of their schedule. They buy their books on Amazon. So, and they're used to that. And the women that are reading comics today almost all read manga 15 years ago, 20 years ago when they were 15. They grew up on Tokyo Pop manga, which was huge in the United States, and now they're 35 and they want more adult content that's delivered in a quality basis like the Japanese stuff. And that's why Sunstone and Swing are so successful. It's kind of crazy to me. I mean, I have an entire generation of women that see me as this romance author, and I don't see myself that way. That's really weird, man.
That's crazy. So, I mean, if our viewers or fans want to follow you, where can we send them?
If they're on Twitter, it's Top Cow Matt. MATT. On Instagram, I'm mhawk5222. Facebook, it's Self-Loathing Narcissist. If you just Google Matt Hawkins, Facebook, Top Cow, you'll get all my feeds. I mean, they're not that hard to find.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to hide. So.
Well, it seems like I'm trying to hide lately, but yeah. Other than that, yeah. Well, thanks again for being on the show, Matt. We really appreciate it, man.
No, thanks for having me, and you guys stay safe and stay COVID-19 free.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, man.
Oh, thanks, guys. Take care.
Awesome. Good stuff. Always great to talk to our favorite creators, see what's going on over at Image Comics. And now let's jump to the thing that this podcast is based on, the foundation of all that is meaningful, the comic news. I feel like I should have like the report again, but I don't have it. Maybe after quarantine I'll hire a guy. But Marvel announces another Empire tie-in, so Chris is going broke. Lords of Empire Swordsman will be written by Alex Packnettle with art by Thomas Nachlik. Are these characters? Is Swordsman a character? I don't even know.
He's a dead character, which is what makes this interesting. So apparently he's being resurrected.
Is he just a swordsman?
Basically, it's an old Avengers villain who I don't remember where he died but he's dead. So yeah, it's kind of a big deal that he's back somehow. And like you said, yeah, I did the first order for Empire tie-ins earlier today, and I feel the hurt in my wallet, so that'll be fun.
Marvel announces an 8 annual tie-in event series called Infinite Destinies. This series will pair up with a legacy character with a newer character in an adventure to find the Infinity Stones. So it sounds like it's going to be leading to a reboot or something. Kind of sounds like a generational thing like DC's doing, huh?
No, it sounds like something that Marvel did years ago called Generations.
Right.
Where they paired up the new versions of whatever character with the old version of whatever character. But it's an Infinity. I mean, I'll buy it because it's Infinity. You put Infinite in the name, I'm going to buy it.
Chris has already bought it.
They know. It's just like you DC dorks with your Crisis.
Yep.
Pretty
much.
But that said, I'm not really excited for this.
Yeah.
It's the annual tie-in thing, too. That's an old concept.
Yeah,
that I'm really surprised they're bringing back.
Yeah. This is very sad. Free Comic Book Day has been postponed. Obviously, due to the COVID-19 concerns. Diamond will choose to resume at a later date, so not announced yet.
So they had an initial thing where they were going to do like a month-long Free Comic Book Day, and like a couple of them were going to come out every week. And that's obviously gone away because places are now being forced to shut down.
Right.
But I like that idea. Like, I liked it initially, and for me, it seems like our comic shop's going to stay open for whatever reason. But the thing about this is that a lot of these books, like, yeah, the smaller titles are just there to get noticed, but like, the Marvel and DC stuff is going to tie in directly to what they're doing with their events.
Right. So
I'm curious to see how that works out.
You might just see it released digitally in May or something.
I'm almost down for that if they just release them digitally on the correct day, quote unquote, and then later do a publishing run of them. The thing that sucks here is for retailers. You're probably shut down, so sorry. But also, that's a huge selling day for retailers. I mean, every retailer I've ever known has a huge sale that day and sells a ton of crap. So,
yeah,
that's a hit too. But it's sad. First year without a Free Comic Book Day, at least for now. We'll see.
I know. They broke the streak. Have been going, I don't know how many years, and man, it feels bad. But with that, let's talk about the comics that we did read. I'm going to start off because it seems kind of relevant. The Resistance, #1, J. Michael Straczynski, AWA Comics, right? AWA? Is that? Yeah.
I read this as well.
Basically, an outbreak happens, a little more crazier than Corona. This one, like, gives you accelerated cancer and 95% kill rate, 5% survival rate, and then it, like, within 2 days, it, like, melts your insides. I think is kind of what they said. I don't know how cancer can melt your insides, but hey, comic book science. The whole thing it revolves around like how the world is reacting to it. So it's kind of cool to see the U.S. president. His daughter gets it, so it's like, oh man, guess we can't avoid it anymore. With our political bullcrap. And then there's a time jump at the end, right? And I believe
couple months.
Yeah, so it's like basically they're celebrating the last case of it, right? Like there's like a big celebration to say that was so many months ago and that was our last case, but I don't know if they actually say how far ahead it is.
I don't know. The whole curing thing was confusing because there's like two women and they're two sisters and they're standing there.
Mm-hmm.
They both have some sort of special powers, and one seems to sacrifice herself to save everybody. That's kind of how I took it.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little section of bad writing, which is weird in the Straczynski book.
They might have had him. I almost think they might have had him like alter the ending. I wouldn't be surprised with the timing this was released. They might have heavy edited this or made him change some stuff. I don't know.
It's possible, but then they, the last couple of pages they show a bunch of different people and give like kind of one-word names to them, like it's the survivors, the hopeful, the hidden, the beautiful, the blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
and it's just showing different people who have gotten abilities through this disease. It was a good story, I thought, but it was very much like set up for something else to come. And if you like Mike Dowd Jr. art, which if you don't, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, the art's really
you'll
good.
love this book because his art is fantastic in it.
X-Ray Robot #1, Mike Allred with his wife Laura Allred, right?
Wow, I didn't think you'd read this one.
It was cool. I didn't think I'd read this one. Come on. It was.
I didn't think you were. I thought you hated Allred.
No, I've never really read any of his stuff.
Oh, okay.
I like the plot synopsis of this book. It kind of revolves around this extra dimensional travel and like time travel paradox, which I'm all about. Basically, a scientist, goes through a portal that accelerates him through time, but also a copy of him is left in there as well, in the lab. But then the future self comes from like 200 years in the future, is like a robot now and swaps brains with the robot, or his brain gets copied into the robot and is like, I'm from the future, you need to listen to me. It took me like 200 something years to get here. So there's definitely some weird time travel paradox going on. The first time he looked into the extra dimension, he saw like a future of like chaos and apocalypse and stuff like that. I thought it was a solid first issue, so I'm curious to see where it goes.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. It was like crazy Allred back to when he was doing Madman.
Yeah.
I'm obviously a huge fan of his art. I think his art is amazing, and the story was cool. Like they pull you in with we're trying to go into prove that there's other dimensions, and we're going to do it through this robot, and that kind of twists and turns into this time travel story. So yeah, I'm very interested to see where this goes. I thought it was a fantastic first issue.
Yep. Dragonfly Man and Dragonfly #5, my favorite book. Tom Payer. Basically, this wraps up the whole story arc where Stinger and Dragonfly Man aren't really getting along. His Robin to his Batman, if you will. Earth Alpha Stinger makes up with Dragonfly, and this is like the 60s Batman universe, and there's a big celebration for Stinger and how he's like the luckiest sidekick in the world, blah blah blah. Whereas the Earth Omega Dragonfly Man's the Dark Knight universe, the Stinger throws his costume and a suitcase of money out the window after he leaves. He pretty much leaves, and the Dragonfly Man's like, well, take this with you, and it's his costume and a bunch of money, and he throws it. And then later in the end of the issue, we find this like girl who's like begging on the street, and she finds the suitcase with the costume, and she's about the same size and like age as Robin is now, so we might get like a female Stinger show up or start fighting crime on the streets with this $1 million case and costume. So it was a pretty cool ending, I thought. They could go a lot of cool places with it. Batman 91, James Tynion IV, and they changed artists, so I forgot who's doing the art now, but Basically, this whole like organizer, new villain guy. They say that the Joker is behind everything, kind of at the end of the issue, which surprise, surprise, James Tynion loves the Joker. But the interesting thing was, I can't remember the guy's name. I don't know if he's the organizer or he's like supposed to be the worst villain ever. Him and Riddler are kind of teaming up at the end, and Deathstroke realizes he's not getting paid by this guy. He's like, wait, so I'm not getting paid. So him and Batman kind of team up, and then it's like Riddler's like, okay, now you have to face me, and that's going to be the next issue. So I'm always hyped for a Deathstroke Batman team up. I love both those characters, so it's not a bad Batman book. It's better than Miami Vice Batman, so I can't really complain. But yeah, that's what I had this week, Chris.
So I also had Star Wars *4.
Oh, I missed
which
that.
is kind of the Leia's and Carbonite and
Leia.
Lando. Yes, Leia.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry. Lando and Luke both have to team up and save her along with a bunch of other people. It was a fun issue. A lot of it was Luke like rediscovering the Force and realizing that he still has a connection to it. He goes to find his lightsaber and never ends up finding it, but then like one of the creatures in the trash pit finds it. So there's a little hint to like who found his lightsaber and possibly where it went after that. And then it ends with them, escaping and going on. And Luke says that he has a destiny he has to follow. And I'm kind of hoping that that's where the book moves now, is with Luke, because that's one of the more interesting gaps is what Luke did after Empire and how he became as powerful as he was, got a new lightsaber, and did all these things in Return of the Jedi. So I think that's where it's going to move. And I enjoy the first 4 issues. I think they're really good.
Cool.
DCeased Unkillables #2. First of all, the most terrifying thing on the planet is a zombie Mirror Master.
Oh, man.
So we had these 2 stories in the first issue, one with some heroes, one with a bunch of villains, and they end up having to come together because Wonder Woman storms the villains' like island, their solitude, and kills a bunch of them. And Mirror Master gets him out, but then he goes back to save Captain Cold, and he ends up getting bitten. And then it's just like terrifying from there because he pops out of mirrors and just like eats people.
That is so awesome, dude. I gotta read this. You just said that. I'm reading this book. I gotta catch up.
It was great. I absolutely loved it. The back and forth between the characters they chose, like a lot of them are D-list. Deathstroke's kind of the main character, so he's obviously the A of the group. But it's just a lot of fun, really great. I like what they're doing. And then at the end, they tease one of the people that gets bit by Mirror Master is Bane. And so you got a giant venom-infused zombie Bane running around. Yeah. And they make the joke in this because Grundy's in it, because they're like, well, Grundy's not a zombie. Well, not that kind of zombie. That was my issue of the first issue, is I'm like, well, Grundy's already a zombie. So
yeah, right. Yeah, he's basically a zombie.
Year of the Villain, Hell Arisen #4. Speaking of Tynion, awesome issue. It's the final battle between Luthor and the Batman Who Laughs. Luthor wins and then takes the Batman Who Laughs to Perpetua, and Batman Who Laughs ends up convincing Perpetua that Luthor is just a lapdog and he's no use to her, and turns Perpetua on Luthor. There's like a great sequence here where Luthor's explaining why he's doing what he's doing, and when Perpetua turns on him, he realizes, like, I just doomed all of humanity, and I got nothing out of it. So now it's Perpetua and Batman Who Laughs together fighting to destroy everything. And then this kind of sets up Death Metal.
Nice.
I think it's a good series. I know a lot of people didn't read it. It's not like the best series ever, but if you read Justice League and you're into this Death Metal and Dark Knight's Metal, I think it's a necessary read. Okay. There's an explanation here as to what happened at the end of Justice League. They got sucked into like something where they can bring their powers together to try to fight everything. So there is like a little bit of a cleaning up of issues from that. But I really liked it. That was a good series. What?
Like a Captain Planet kind of thing?
No, it was. It's hard to because there was so much in this issue. I'm trying to remember exactly how they explained it, but and the way that Luther like gets rid of all the evil superheroes is cool too. Like he breaks off the connection between Batman who Laughs and all them through a serum. It's weird, but I'm not going to find it here. But yeah, it's not a Captain Planet situation. They went through a portal that was going to help them like find strength to be able to fight this battle. Go read it if you really want to know, but I really liked it. And then my last book was Miracleman book 1, written by the original author. It's Alan Moore, everybody.
It's Alan Moore.
So anyone out there, comic book rundown this Friday. So Friday after this releases, I'm on it. And this is the book we did. So I'll go into more detail in that show. But it's a really great story. It's them doing a Shazam story, but kind of altering it in the Alan Moore way. I highly recommend it. I think it's really great. Mike, you would like it. It almost has a Morrison-y feel to it, where like, think the wizard Shazam comes down, gives him his powers, but he ends up finding out that it was a government experiment and they implanted all those memories into his head, and he's actually been altered by alien DNA.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
So I want to keep reading because there's like 2 more books in the series. It is a little weird because it was done in anthologies. So they're like 6-page stories meshed together. So it's a different read, but I thought it was really great and would highly recommend it to anybody. I don't know if you know this, but Alan Moore can write comics.
Yeah, he's pretty good at it. So I've heard.
So, Mike, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at Fortress Ricker on Twitter. Where can they find you and or the show, Chris?
You can find the show at fortresscomicnews.com. Everything we do is right there on the handy dandy website. Right now, I'm asking everybody to find me at chrisrunt.com, CHRISRUNDT.com. Go there, check out my Kickstarter. It's going to launch this Friday,
This Friday.
Comic Book Rundown's coming out, and we'll also have a interview-esque with me about the project on this feed, so check that out as well. It'll have all the links on it. But yeah, super nervous, super excited. If you want to give money during the apocalypse, my Kickstarter is a great place to go. And yeah, make sure to give the show 5 stars. It helps us reach more ears. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, share. And yeah, thanks for listening. We'll see you all next week. Maybe, hopefully.